My topic for this video is the generational cycle of domestic violence and its effect on child development. Domestic abuse is so widespread and accepted that a recent United Nations World Health Organization report stated that domestic abuse is a global health problem of epidemic proportions. Related to this general social problem is the generational cycle of domestic violence as it affects children and succeeding generations. My research has led me to conclude that domestic violence is a learned behavior that has its roots in childhood. If a child witnesses abuse or is abused by a parent or other adult, he may come to think that anger and violence are an appropriate response in similar situations. This learned response sets up what I call the generational cycle of domestic violence. The abused child grows up to be the abusing adult, who in turn abuses his own spouse and children. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence identifies several effects of violence on child development. The coalition found that witnessing acts of violence between parents and or caretakers is one of the strongest risk factors in the transmission of violent behavior from one generation to the next. In fact, boys who witness domestic violence are twice as likely to be abusers themselves when they become adults. Crisis Connections, which is a grassroots agency serving victims of domestic violence in Indiana, has compiled research results about the learned behavior and the generational cycle of violence. What they found, in my opinion, is rather shocking. Apparently, more than 3 million children witness acts of domestic violence every year in their own homes, the place where they should feel the safest. As violence against one of the adults escalates, the children in the home tend to experience a 300% increase in physical abuse by the adult abuser. Boys who grow up in homes with domestic violence are 100 times more likely to become abusers than boys in violence-free homes. A corollary is that 81% of men who are abusers had fathers who abused their mothers when very young. The effects of domestic violence are not limited to just the home. A history of child abuse has been found to increase a person's likelihood of being arrested by 53%, which is quite a lot. Violent juvenile delinquents are also 4 times more likely than other youth groups to come from homes in which one adult abused the other. The March of Dimes has found that 63% of young men aged 11 to 20 years of age who are serving time for homicide killed their mother's abuser, and 80% of men in prison grew up in violent homes. A child's exposure to either adult abusing the other is the strongest risk factor of transmitting violent behavior from one generation to the next. While many children who witness domestic abuse tend to grow up to repeat the behavior when they become spouses and parents, others turn the abuse inward. Children, especially girls who grow up in violent homes, tend to turn to drugs or alcohol for release and comfort. Many escape into promiscuity, early marriage, and or pregnancies, which can then lead them into abusive relationships as themselves. There is now a movement to try to break this intergenerational cycle of domestic violence. The Violence Intervention Program in New York City is one such effort. It offers individual and group therapy to young victims of domestic abuse. The purpose is to help them understand what a healthy relationship is and how to effectively deal with stress in a non-violent way. There are also other support groups which offer therapeutic activities to domestic violence victims. While these programs are new and their effectiveness is not yet known, it is hoped that they will eventually be effective in breaking the cycle of intergenerational violence.